Hello everyone. I wanted to show you the Michael Wittmann expansion, and I'm very excited about this because it brings not only a couple more tanks to the game, but it brings the Tiger tanks, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. Now, this is your Platoon purchase option here for Michael Wittmann. And as you can see, with the 110 points, you're going to get the Michael Wittmann tank. You then have a large expansion slot for, an additional purchase. It doesn't have to be from this counter sheet. It's just one counter sheet's all you get. But you could purchase a second tank. So if you wanted, for 200 points, you could buy yourself 2 Tiger tanks. That's pretty impressive. That's a lot of points for 2 tanks. Now, you do get 1 command token, and that's the leadership symbol. I should have looked that one up before we started, but I know that this allows you to purchase certain cards and events in your decks that have that symbol on it, so that'll let you purchase some maybe specialized equipment you normally wouldn't get. So as far as some of your purchase options that you have, you do get Intrepid, which gives initiative to the unit. I'm not exactly sure how that works out. I have to admit, I've read it a couple times, and I'm not quite sure what that means. When it says initiative to the unit, I was trying to think, well, if both sides are going, and it comes down to, turn order 3, if the other person has initiative on the track, but you have Intrepid, then maybe the non-phase initiative person could have their unit go first, on ties. That's how I interpret it, but I'm not entirely sure. You also have a fuel option you can buy. Your fuel lets you get additional movement. So if you buy 3 fuel for 5 points, then you can get an extra space of movement. You could, if you want, purchase your Tiger tank, or purchase yourself the Flak Gun on the side. And then here's your individual fuel counters. They have Blitzkrieg. Now this is new. I haven't seen this in any of my other games, but the Blitzkrieg lets you set up off table. So if I wanted, I could buy, Michael Wittmann for the 110, and then I could put in there, because the colors match, I could stick Blitzkrieg in, and Blitzkrieg lets you set up, you pick a tile. So normally, your game sets up with 6 tiles. You can pick a tile, and then you can come in on that tile anywhere you want. That's pretty cool. So I like that. And then all the vehicles can come in on that tile. What is this one? APC shell. This gives you I think it's at +1 to hit on, I'm just trying to remember. I think there was a +1 to hit your vehicle. Let me double check here. I got the APC. Yeah, gives you a +1 bonus when firing at a heavy vehicle, so +1 hit against heavy vehicles. The HE shells also gives a unit a barrage, so because you can purchase your 88mm Flak Gun, you could almost make this an artillery piece as well by buying HE shells for it. I guess you could buy HE shells for your Tiger tank too and give it a little bit of a howitzer, because what you do, it gives it the barrage ability with the matching color. So this would be the red template for firing. And then here's your tokens for tracking damage. Since they gave you two tanks, they gave you 2 sets. So basically when you do damage a vehicle, you roll a die and you just pull out the one that you rolled, and bada bing, you hurt the crew or the track or the turret. I was looking to see, I think that's all the oh yeah, and then in addition to the purchase things you can buy the artillery. Now this is different. This is not like buying the 88 as an artillery. This is buying the artillery cards. So if you pay 25 points, you get 2 artillery cards that you can purchase. Normally the artillery cards are not in your deck when you play. You actually have to buy the artillery, and that's how you do it. So I could buy, with this board, I could buy Michael Wittmann's tank, then I could purchase 2 artillery cards for 25 points. What you do is you take your play deck of cards, you split it in half. Then you take your artillery cards that you've purchased and you shuffle them into the bottom half of the deck, and when you split it in two, you shuffle those artillery cards. Then you stick that shuffled bottom deck that you put those cards, and now you stick that on top of the other half and make a new deck. So in your beginning phases of the game, as you draw through the cards, those artillery cards are going to be in the top half of your deck. Yeah, I probably didn't explain that very well, but essentially you can either buy for yourself one artillery card or two artillery cards. There's all of your purchase options. So, you know, it's some new stuff for me. You know, and of course all these things are compatible as long as you match your platoon building colors that you could use with your other sets. Now you have the tanks. And that's pretty zoomed in. Hopefully you can see that. I guess I can just use, I was looking for a pointing stick. I was like, oh, well, I'll just point it with my finger. Now, hopefully you can see the symbols pretty well. Let's see if I can just zoom in a little bit. If I can find the zoom button. I don't want to zoom in too fast and make you dizzy. Now, this is good stuff here. So we'll take a look here at some stats. Well, first of all, you've got 10 armor on the front, 9 on the sides, 8 on the back. That's actually pretty well armored, and it's the same on the other one as well. You then have 4 movement, which is the same here for both. You then have 3 of your, what do you call it, demolition points for when you want to shoot like a building. You would roll 3 dice, and then every 4, 5, or 6 is a point of damage to a building. So that's actually very devastating. Each tank has Hawkeye, which means you ignore the long-range shooting bonus. Each one has, well, this used to be called proliferation, but now it's like called penetration. But essentially, what the penetration does, I'm going to make sure I get this right. Oh, that's an ability back here. But that like gave you an extra, like a +1 when you're going for, when you shoot a vehicle. Oh, it's called piercing. Yeah, it used to be called perforating, now it's called piercing. Add 1 to the die roll when you locate damage dealt to a heavy vehicle. Oh, okay, that's a little bit different than what I thought. So you're going to roll your damage die, you add +1 to it. I guess that makes it easier for you to try and get a 6 to blow up a vehicle. So they each have the piercing ability, which is what it's called now. And the Michael Wittmann tank has a fire on the move. That's pretty good for a big tank. And the penalty is only -1. Wow. So that's pretty amazing as far as tanks go with the amount of damage it does. So it gets +3 against infantry, +6 against light vehicles, +5 against other heavy vehicles, which, I mean, that's still pretty significant. But now, to be able to do that on the move is pretty amazing. Most tanks don't get to fire on the move. And the regular tank, as you can see, does not get it. So that's pretty much going to be the biggest difference between the two tanks, is Michael Wittmann gets to fire on the move. There's their machine gun stats. They get to fire on the move, but it's a -2 penalty, +4 against infantry, +2 against light vehicles, and the machine guns don't do any good against heavy vehicles. You then have your suppression ability and the machine gunner ability, so you can split your fire among targets. So essentially, you have to pick the same target type. So if, let's say, infantry, you can pick 2 infantry that are within 2 squares of each other, and you just kind of sweep your fire back and forth. And you just split your combat ability. So with a +4, I could say I'm going to put maybe +3 against this unit and +1 against here. So you kind of get to split your combat bonus, as long as one of the troops you're rolling against gets +1. So you can't say I'm going to shoot between these two, put my +4 against here, and have +0 against this one. You got to have at least +1. So you can go like +2, +2, +1, +3, however you want to split it between those targets. And then with suppression, you get to double your bonus. So if I had, say, a trench line and there was, 3 troops, I could say I'm going to do suppressive fire, make that a +8, and then go like, 3 against him, 3 against him, plus 2 against this guy, as long as it adds up to the 8. The only thing is, when you attack and you're using that suppressive fire, they get suppression tokens instead of taking damage. And then also, if you just say do all your suppressive fire against one target, if your attack roll then is like double their defense, then you get to put 2 suppression tokens. So there you go. Your tanks have the ability to suppress, they have the ability to try and shoot at multiple targets, and the Michael Wittmann can shoot on the move. So very good. Tanks and vehicles are always very good because those machine guns they have are mounted, they're very accurate, and they put a lot of firepower on target. Finally, last is the 88 Flak Gun. So it has, I think this is like the spotter crew. They have very limited shooting. They can assault, but they don't have very good ability as far as engaging the enemy. Only +1 against infantry. Now, as far as the main gun, it also has that eagle eye. It has this is like a spotting. That's the opportunity fire. So not many units get opportunity fire. This is one that has the opportunity fire, and that means if something moves within range, you can go ahead and take a pot shot. It also has that penetration on it. +3 against infantry, +6 against light vehicles, and +5 against heavy vehicles. So it's like the same as the Tiger, because my understanding is pretty much the Tiger tank cannon was this Flak Gun, just modified to fit on a tank. So very devastating. The other thing too is it does have the deployment, how far forward it can deploy, so you can actually put this on the board in a defensive spot a little bit further ahead of your initial deployment. And then it also has a bonus against shooting down aircraft. So if someone plays an aircraft card and you make your die roll to see if you can stop the aircraft, you get a +1 to your die roll. So there you go. Now you have the back of the sheets. Yeah, poor Tigers. If they get blown up, they become an obstacle. And then there's your 11 points of, victory points if you can destroy that platoon there. So just to give you kind of a quick look. Now what's cool though about the Flak Gun, because it's kind of like they're treating it almost like an infantry unit. So if they take damage, see they can't move, and they have light vehicle defense of 7, but it doesn't blow up if it gets destroyed. You're actually going to flip it, and then the crew, well, it still says it gets to shoot. It's just not very effective, but if you hit it again, well, shoot. Looks like all the stats are pretty much the same. That's actually, that's pretty good. They don't lose a whole lot. Let's see. No. Wow, that's actually worth purchasing. It doesn't lose any of its characteristics if it's taken a hit. Powerful, I'd say. Well, there you go. There's your Michael Wittmann. Put it back over. So yeah, if you've ever thought about purchasing these expansions, I think they're worth it. You're going to get some equipment, some options, and of course all of this is compatible with your other platoons as long as your colors match, for your platoon options. And at least for Michael Wittmann, you get 2 Tiger tanks to play with. So thanks for stopping by and checking it out. Thanks a lot.